Welcome, everybody, to the Mormon Newscast. I am joined by Radio Free Mormon and Rebecca Biblioteca. How are the two of you tonight?
Fantastic. I have to give a disclaimer. Before I came on tonight, I was cooking spaghetti and I got some spaghetti sauce in my eye. So if I'm winking a lot, it has nothing to do with the news I'm reporting. It's simply spaghetti sauce.
So your eyes are not bloodshot?
No, they're not bloodshot. It's spaghetti sauce.
Okay.
There we go. That explains that. Well, good to see both of you. It is August 25th, 2025, and we're really grateful that all of you are here joined with us. We've got some great stories tonight. I'm going to put up the slideshow here. There's the thumbnail. Mormon
Jasmine Rappleye.
There she is. Mormon Apologist apologizes. Yes. And our stories tonight is Jasmine Rappleye apologizes with a question mark.
The big question mark, by the way.
And that her story has to do with sex abuse and clergy privilege. We're going to follow that story up with even more sexual abuse cases that have happened in Utah, 2 of them tonight. It seems like this happens quite a bit, almost on the weekly, and sometimes 2 or 3 times a week in Mormonism. The next story is polygamy deniers under attack. And then we follow that up with church response to Australian land grab, followed by the new Salt Lake Temple parking lot needs zoning change. And then we have a few other small stories after that. So we'll start with Mr. Radio Free Mormon, who will delve into Mrs. Jasmine Rappleye.
Don't even. Here's the story. You. Jasmine Rappleye apologized for offensive video? Did she really? Well, you may recall because we reported on this 2 weeks ago on the newscast, where at the FAIR conference, there was an attorney who represents the church and is closely involved in the the hotline, the church hotline that the bishops and the stake presidents are supposed to call so they can talk to the attorneys who represent the church whenever there's been an allegation of sexual abuse of some sort within the church. But she came up with a video that really was quite offensive to a number of people. She references that in her apology, okay? Now, she calls it response to clergy reporting. That might be better because what I'm going to ask is that you pay attention to this apology, okay, or response. Then we preserved her entire original video that she's clarifying or apologizing for in this video. She took it down, so it's a good thing that we played the whole thing 2 weeks ago. Because then I want to go back to that so you can see what it is she's apologizing for, bring it up again, and then play this part again, all right? But first off, let's see what just happened. I think this was a day or 2 ago, where she took down her original offending video and put this up in its stead.
I recently posted about how the church handles SA based on a recent conference I attended, and I tried to describe the church's approach to SA in my post, and I received a lot of feedback. I apologize if I haven't gotten to all of your messages. I've been out of town, off grid, and I have been having meaningful conversations with people behind the scenes. The truth is, I could have worded things more carefully as I was trying to communicate what I learned from a victim of SA at the FAIR conference, and I think my messaging led to some misunderstanding. I acknowledge that a lot of people have been deeply hurt by this issue, and that makes me very sad. It was heartbreaking to read of so many tragic stories of people's own SA experiences, and I am so sorry for the hurt and the pain you've gone through. So let me try to clarify. Of course, SA should be reported. The church urges all members to report SA to the civil authorities in the handbook and their training materials. The church itself reports hundreds of cases of abuse every year. I am sorry if I did not communicate that clearly. I'd like to try and clarify and explain a little bit more of my intent, because my intent was not to prevent reporting. From what I've been able to understand, allowing people who are scared or unsure of what to do, allowing them to talk to their clergy confidentially, has a protective effect on children, which is why most states, both red states and blue states, preserve clergy penitent privilege. Some people who would not talk to anyone else about SA will talk to their clergy if they understand they can do so confidentially. It's better that someone knows than no one knows. People who talk to their bishop in confidence will often consent to a report being made once the clergy can explain how important that step is, and other protective measures can also be put in place quickly. Not every case has been handled the way it should, and I'm so sorry for those who have been hurt. But from what I can see, I do believe the church is operating in good faith, that they are doing what they do to try to protect as many children as possible. But because this is so sensitive and we're limited by this format, to understand the reasons why clergy can serve a uniquely protective role, I would encourage you to watch the full presentation of Randy Austin and Carrie Nielsen at the FAIR conference. You can go to their website where you can still buy access to streaming, and hopefully they're going to get it on their YouTube channel soon. I would also recommend this podcast episode with SA survivor and therapist Jennifer Roach on how the church's approach seeks to protect children.
Jennifer Roach. Never has a name been more descriptive. I'm sorry, Rebecca, did you want to say something about that?
Your comment or the whole video?
Well, tell me about the video, okay? Because this dropped, and how's it doing?
People are responding. The first video, many people put out all kinds of content about it. I mean, it really was a flashpoint there. This video, the same thing. People are becoming aware of it, and they're also responding to it. But I'll say the same thing I said 2 weeks ago. Number one, I feel like she's only addressing the idea that a victim might be comfortable going into a bishop. She's not even entertaining the idea that there could be a perpetrator in her ward, right? So my thought about the victim going in is when you go into an LDS bishop, there is a worthiness component that every victim has to kind of fight their way through as they talk to the bishop. I mean, this is the organization, the church, that came up with the term non-consensual immorality. Do you remember that? I can't remember which apostle said that. There's this component of worthiness that they're going to talk to you about. Okay, so you say this happened to you. What were you wearing? Where were you? I mean, this exists. This is a thing. And so I feel that a victim should absolutely just go straight to law enforcement. It is not confidential. The first thing that happens is the bishop picks up a phone and tells somebody else what you've just told them, right? The hotline. So
But that's covered by the attorney-client privilege now.
That's what I'm saying. All these privileges, but who doesn't have the privilege is the victim. I still don't see a straight line between telling a bishop and getting a victim help. It's all very nebulous. Maybe the bishop will report. Maybe the hotline will tell them to do it. Maybe somehow they'll contact law enforcement. There's too many maybes involved. And I just don't think that Jasmine, on paper, maybe she thinks it makes sense, but in reality, there's too many variables.
Let me say something, by the way, great comments about that. Is it Jennifer Roach? Colby and I did one of our Light on Truth letter episodes, which we had a special guest on. It dealt a lot with her, Jennifer Roach, and her FAIR conference address, which was probably about as accurate and as controversial as the recent one from this Austin fellow, who is an attorney with Curtin McConkie. Let's go ahead and let's, I just wanted you to know I wasn't being gratuitously insulting. There was a purpose in my insult.
Can I jump in here for just a second and say the church has come a long way? I mean, if we go back 200 years, we had the happiness letter. And now we're at a point where the church says to everyone but its ward, branch, district, stake leadership, it says to all the general members at the lower level of the church, the average ward member, it does say you should report it immediately. Now that's new. That's only the last few years. We've come a long way. But what the church doesn't want to acknowledge is that it still is playing a game, which is that if an average member who isn't rarely going to be clued into something, learns something, they should report it. But if a bishop learns it, he should call the hotline, and the hotline over the last 5 years on multiple occasions has told people you could or could not report it, don't report it. And if you do report it, our legal team will no longer represent you. You will now be on the outside looking in, and that will be very dangerous for you. The church has made progress. It's been forced to. It's done it out of being embarrassed, but it still has a long way to go.
Very good, very good. Good comments. Now, I tell you what, we may not play this whole thing the second time, but let's go back to 2 weeks ago and look at the video, which she has taken down now. And I see both sides. That one is that she doesn't want to have it up anymore. The other is that is lost to history. And history is important, I think, to preserve and learn from. So let's learn a little bit from history tonight. It's 2 weeks ago, and we are on the newscast, and we are playing the first video, the one that she got so much pushback to. Blake, you gotta, thank you.
Right here.
Well,
Yep.
this is going to sound crazy, but when bishops are not required to report SA, more victims actually get help. It sounds backwards. You would think that more mandatory reporting laws would lead to more SA being reported. But what actually happens is that in states where clergy are mandated reporters, the system actually gets overwhelmed with false reports. Studies show that the total number of reported cases does often go up. However, fewer legitimate SA cases get through, and the real victims get harder to find. Turns out that when a bishop's office is 100% confidential, victims and even perpetrators are more likely to open up. And when they trust that that conversation's safe, bishops have a better chance of persuading that person to self-report and get help before it's too late. I learned this at the FAIR conference from a lawyer who works directly on the church's abuse cases and showed that clergy penitent privilege is not about propping up institutions. It is always about protecting children. I know this is going to sound crazy, but when bishops...
Except when it's not.
If you listen to just that, her first thing, would you guess that she's for reporting or against reporting?
Oh, very much against.
Yeah.
She's talking about, she's emphasizing all the benefits of having it not reported, of having it being held tightly by the bishop. Of course, the idea, but she did say that, you know, then the bishop has a chance to try and talk the guy into reporting it himself, which I'm sure has happened. And I have no idea what the percentage would be. But there's a mistake that she makes both times, I think, and that is in both of these, she seems to conflate this idea of the clergy penitent privilege with what it is that the victim comes in and tells him about. Okay, because that's not a confession. That's a reporting of a crime. Could be by a child, could be by an adult, about a child, about themselves. But the clergy penitent privilege has traditionally been those things that have been confessed, wrongdoings that have been confessed in order to seek absolution or be on the road to repentance in the Mormon church. So I don't know that that applies. I did let her know that, though. Last night, I thought she would appreciate that. If I could put this on the stage. Let's see. I'm trying to...
What do you want to do here? Oh, that there.
Yeah. Well, hang on. This was it.
There it is.
Yeah, there's two of them down below, folks. And one of them is Bill's and one of them is mine. And I was goofing around with his, apparently. My apologies, Bill. Yeah, so I put on there, please. No, mine's at the top. Just to clarify, the clergy penitent privilege protects the perpetrator, not the victim. Okay. So anyway, she frequently talks about that the clergy penitent privilege helps the victim when they come in to talk to the bishop, but it's not about the victim. It's about the perpetrator generally. Okay. Any comments now, Rebecca or Bill? By the way, I'd like to hear from everybody out there in the live chat or in the comments, whether you think the second one was a sufficient response, clarification, or apology to the first one.
I think there's also this idea that I can't remember if she brought it up or it was brought up elsewhere, that talking to a bishop, if you're a victim, allows the bishop to kind of use his inspiration and determine, you know, if this is a real report so that innocent people aren't hurt, right? Yes. Right there, you've got the worthiness factor, you've got the judging the victim factor. If the victim goes to law enforcement, that's not going to happen. It's going to, supposedly, it's going to be very professional. There is no religious component. I just don't think that that belongs there.
Okay. Bill, anything?
I'm just struck by the, and I'm not, I mean, the reason I'm stammering here is because I'm not caught off guard. This is what I would have done at the time when I was all in on the church and defending it. But it's to always give the benefit of the doubt to the people who speak on behalf of the church. When the brethren say something about the SEC, we trust what they say. When Elder Oaks says that electroshock therapy didn't originate with him and didn't happen under his watch, we trust Elder Oaks. When Elder Ballard says they don't hide anything and they're as transparent as they know how to be, we trust Elder Ballard. And she does it again here by trusting a lawyer who's paid a good amount of money for a law firm that entirely represents the church. I mean, they do other things too, but the church is their number one client. And she automatically goes, let's give that lawyer the benefit of the doubt. Of course, he's a truth teller. I just, this kind of story just gets old in terms of who we should listen to, who we should not listen to, and who's telling the truth.
I mean, when we talk to somebody's lawyer, are we not going to expect them to say only good things about their client?
Mm.
And if they don't actually lie, are we not fully anticipating that they will spin things to make gold out of straw?
Yeah. That's the lawyers, in a sense, that's the obligation they've promised to do, is to paint their client in the very best light.
Yeah, part of the representation, but she's there accepting it as gospel because she heard it at the fair conference.
Yeah.
But once again, she has taken that down and she's put up this other. So at any rate, that's the status of things there. That's why an apologist apologizes is the lead story, and why there's a question mark at the end, because I'm not sure that was an apology. All right. Are we continuing? Yes. Onward. All right. Now we got 3 stories in a row. I'm going to do the first 2. Bill's going to do the third one about sexual abuse in Utah amongst the Mormons. It's amazing. This has been a very, very big week for sexual abuse. Every story, one about discernment, which I think Jasmine Rappleye was advocating for the bishop's discernment. Every one of these stories has at least one bishop, one church leader, if not multiple, failing in their discernment, and a host of other problems, but especially for the victims. Here's the first story. Provo mental health therapist arrested for alleged voyeurism. Police say, this is from the Daily Herald, staff writer, August 21st, 2025. The Provo Police Department has arrested a man who works as a mental health therapist for allegedly tricking multiple women into exposing themselves, which the department said in a press release served no therapeutic purpose. Shawn Talbot, 55, of Eagle Mountain, was arrested Monday on suspicion of voyeurism. As of Thursday, he had not been formally charged. According to a probable cause statement, 2 women came forward to police in July, so last month, regarding the actions they reportedly endured at a Provo counseling clinic while in Talbot's care. It was Utah Valley Counseling. That's a picture of the building there. In a recorded interview, both women recounted separate instances during which the alleged misconduct took place. One woman, identified in the affidavit as victim number 1, alleged that Talbot manipulated her into taking off her shirt and bra over the course of several mental health sessions, exposing herself as part of what she described as humiliating exercises that she claims he portrayed as legitimate mental health therapy. I think he was representing these as some sort of trust exercise to develop trust. He also reportedly pushed her to do handstands in front of him after she removed her shirt and bra, according to court documents. In a voluntary statement addressed to the Department of Professional Licensing, Talbot reportedly said that the woman tried the handstand in his presence, which he said showed very poor judgment and that he allowed boundaries to be crossed. Another woman, identified as victim number 2 in the affidavit, told police that something similar happened during her therapy sessions. She alleged that Talbot also manipulated her into bending down in front of him, exposing her breasts. Court documents state that Talbot was fired from his position at Utah Valley Counseling's Provo location on June 30th, stemming from a different allegation of sexual abuse and numerous complaints of harassment by female co-workers. During their investigation, detectives became aware of similar allegations against Talbot in a previous case involving minor females in 2020, according to the booking affidavit. So minor females. Quote, detectives reviewed the case report from the 2020 incident and observed that allegations made against Shawn Talbot during forensic interviews were extremely similar to the allegations in this case, the affidavit reads. In an interview with Police Monday, Talbot reportedly did not deny the current allegations, but said that the actions took place in a therapeutic practice and was meant to empower them, court documents state. He reportedly went on to deny any sexual motives to the alleged acts, but he recognized that what he did was wrong. Talbot was arrested and booked into the Utah County Jail following the interview. The Provo Police Department suspects there may be others who have experienced similar non-therapeutic requests during treatment by Talbot. If so, they are encouraged to file a report by calling the department's non-emergency number 801-852-6210. Again, that number 801-852-6210. So there's the first story. Any comments?
It seems
Go ahead.
It seems like he's been in trouble numerous times. And I have to imagine in those instances, the way this is worded is that he's been talked to before by authorities. They've had incidents that he's been able to articulate a response to so as to get out of it and not have it be clear cut so that he got charged and something came of it. That would be enough for the gross people out there to stop doing the gross thing. But this guy allegedly is so gross that he continues to do the thing even after authorities talk to him. Even self-admittedly crossing boundaries.
It is a strange set of facts, and I guess we'll see what charges end up getting filed. When I say a strange set of facts, I mean, how are you going to fit this into a criminal statute? And I guess voyeurism is the closest you got, but I don't know. It's unusual. He's not peeping through a window. He's having them do it as part of a exercise, a mental health exercise.
Which I think is worse. And, whenever I see an article like this, and there have been, like you said, 3 this week, the first thing I do, I check with my sources to see if this person has been in leadership in the LDS church. I check every article, and sometimes I communicate with Floodlit, and I pass on information. So, of course, I had to look this gentleman up. And yes, June 1st, 2025, he was made the executive secretary in his ward. June 1st. After everything that had happened before in 2020, and he was about to get fired just a few weeks later. And I have to ask myself, why do I do this? I do this, number one, to talk about the power of discernment, right? Which seems to be non-existent when you're going to call this guy into ward leadership. And also to hope that maybe some parents or some people will go, you know what? Some of these people being called to leadership are not good people and should not be around my children. I just feel like the sheer number of these cases, and if you go to Floodlit, you'll see this, how many people in the church, there are scenarios like this, and these people are in leadership with access to your children. So I always try to look it up, and I'm just always floored. But in this case, yeah, he was just recently called. I don't know if he's been released, but June 1st, he was in ward leadership.
Yeah, it's amazing. By the way, just to clarify, my question wasn't whether it's worse. My only question is whether it's criminal in Utah. Like I say, we'll see. It's an unusual fact situation, which makes it doubly damning if they have reports from 2020 that say or allege something similar, because it's so unusual. It would probably be allowed. It could be allowed in as evidence in this trial if he gets charged, right? As same plan or purpose.
If there are not laws on the books to clearly draw a line that when a professional who you go to and you think that how they handle your mental health, how they suggest we, dig into things and work through things, if they use that space where we're trusting them that they've been professionally trained to use these exercises, and then instead what they're actually doing is manipulating us into being able to do the gross thing with us that they want to do, let that at least be maybe a word to the general public that we need to have laws on the books that try to at least sort out where professional lines stop and where a creeper is simply using that space of trust to end up getting somebody to do something they shouldn't do. Because I'm with you, RFM. Someone who can articulate the right kind of response and really justify these as exercises to tackle mental health, it may be tough for a prosecutor in some of these instances, because this isn't the first case where something like this is happened. Tim Ballard trying to talk people into being intimate because this will help us make our cover better when we actually have to go into the field and act like we're husband and wife is another such instance of using a space of trust to manipulate somebody. And if we don't have those lines clearly delineated, then I think we need to, because as you guys are both pointing out, it is worse, it's creepier, it's grosser for someone in a professional space, a doctor, a therapist, to use that trust where I don't know what a doctor is supposed to do or not do in some instances. I don't know what a therapist should do or not do. And I would like to think I'm smart enough and wise enough and have enough common sense to know where to draw a line. But I also know that I probably would, in that space, be willing to be manipulated to go a little further than I would think, because I have this person of authority who's telling me to do the thing. And we definitely have to have laws in the books that make that a crime.
Yeah, it reminds me of the recent case, an ongoing case with the LDS gynecologist, right? Who has hundreds and hundreds of cases, alleged this abuse. And one thing they talk to is, like you said, Bill, the innocence of people, especially since he allegedly was preying on people within his own ward and stake. And especially a lot of LDS women going to a gynecologist, they, don't really know, because they're not talked about. That isn't talked about from their mom. So maybe the same thing with the therapist. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what the treatment is. There's an innocence that maybe is there in an LDS community that might not be there somewhere else, which makes you, like a lamb to the slaughter kind of a scenario.
And I'll just say, before you jump into the next story, RFM, that when we started this, I thought Jasmine, and then you had one other sexual assault story, and I had one. You actually have two sexual assault stories.
I know. I was holding up my three when you were saying two.
Three this week.
Not counting Jasmine's apology around the topic. We have three sexual abuse cases this week, and
that was number one.
Here is number two.
Yes. A former Deseret News journalist. By the way, this is from the Deseret News. This is a story about a former Deseret News journalist from the Deseret News. And we'll get to the stuff they don't tell you afterward. A former Deseret News journalist who also wrote an independent syndicated column about, get this, folks, traditional values, was charged Friday for allegedly enticing a detective posing online as a 14-year-old girl to engage in sexual activity. He got caught up in a sting.
Is this Scott Lloyd?
You wish. Not yet. No, it's not Scott Lloyd. It's not Scott Lloyd. He's a hack, but I don't know that he's a pervert. The Davis County Attorney's Office filed third-degree felony charges Friday against Joseph Brent Walker, 70. That's his age. In second district court, only in Mormonism do I have to make that distinction. In second district court, Walker faces 1 count of enticing a minor and 2 counts of distributing material harmful to a minor. Prosecutors also filed a request asking a judge to issue a no bail arrest warrant for Walker. Court documents show him residing in Washington, Utah. Bill?
Yeah, just right where I came from, just before I moved to Cedar City, living in the good old Washington, Utah.
Since doing the newscast, I'm starting to think that Washington and St. George have more than their share.
They do.
Okay. Walker worked in various reporting and editing roles at the Deseret News in 3 separate stints at the company. He left the Deseret News in 2013. Want to make sure you know that. From 1990 to at least 2015, though, that's 25 years. Walker wrote Value Speak. I'd never heard of this before. Value Speak, one word, a weekly syndicated column that examined contemporary issues through the lens of traditional values. The column appeared in at least 30 newspapers and a number of online publications. And I looked up one at random, and this was it from this is from a number of years ago, as you might imagine. It says Value Speak, the man who hates Halloween. And then they have this absolutely bizarre picture there, which I can't fathom. But it looks like a woman with a pumpkin head drying off a girl who's just getting out of a bath, maybe. I don't know. What do you think, Bill?
I'd like to know whose Halloween artifact this belonged to. Was this something he had sitting on the shelf?
I don't know. It says it's very expensive, like the most expensive Halloween artifact. I don't know. It could be. It could be. It's just
strange one.
All of a sudden, it looks strange. Everything looks different when you find out that a guy, gets arrested for this kind of thing.
Yeah, he could have chosen something else. but he chose this.
He could have.
For
If
the
it had been
artwork.
me, I
If
probably
he's
would
in
have
charge of the
chosen.
artwork. Yeah.
Yeah, Sleepy Hollow or something.
Yep.
Headless Horseman. Walker is now a communications director for the Utah Department of Transportation.
Not anymore.
He confirmed to the Deseret News, "I'm not aware of these charges," Walker said when contacted Friday, "so I don't have anything to say." Okay.
No value.
Nothing would have been preferable.
No value.
I just said nothing. This is why you shouldn't talk to the press. Jeez. "I'm not aware of these charges," Walker said when contacted Friday, "so I don't have anything to say." Walker allegedly sent sexually explicit photos to a latent detective posing as a 14-year-old girl and attempted to entice the apparent teen to engage in sexual activity, according to a declaration by Layton Police Detective Travis Rapp, 2 Ps.
Value speak.
Yes. Defendant, are you looking stuff up right now, Bill?
No. I'm not surprised that outward speech doesn't match inner thoughts and be in outward behavior in the shadows.
Yes. A major theme in Macbeth, as well as other Shakespeare plays. What is it? "Away and mock the time with fairest show, false mind what must hide what the false heart doth know." Yeah. Defendant presents a substantial danger to the community, specifically to children. Rapp alleged in the document. That's the detective. Rapp created the fictitious 14-year-old as part of an online investigation. The detective posed as the girl in an online dating forum, according to his declaration. A person using the screen name William Wallace engaged in multiple sexually explicit online conversations with the detective posing as the girl between July 18th and 25th, according to Rapp. The detective alleged that he obtained search warrants and determined through IP addresses and further investigation that Walker was the person using the William Wallace screen name. Posing as the girl, Rapp allegedly made it abundantly clear in the online conversations that the girl was 14. Walker allegedly sent 2 sexually explicit photos to the fictitious girl, Rapp said. The request for an arrest warrant asks a judge to issue a no bail warrant for Walker. A third-degree felony is punishable by up to 5 years in prison, which to me is kind of remarkably low. It's treated much more seriously in Washington. Now, here's the stuff that I got from Floodlit in their opening paragraph. Floodlit being the LDS or post-LDS version about of Spotlight, and highlighting different reports and allegations and sometimes convictions of individuals for sexual abuse. And I think primarily, is it primarily for child sex abuse? I don't know if it's exclusively that, but at any rate, they have an entry for Joseph Brent Walker. And this is what they're saying that the Deseret News did not say. And that's about his connections to the church. Joseph Walker was a former Mormon bishop. Who was it that Jasmine was saying that she was trusting the discretion of? Was it Mormon bishops?
I think so.
I think it was. This could be a problem with her theory. Yeah. Joseph Walker was a former Mormon bishop, stake presidency counselor, and LDS public affairs employee in Utah. He was charged in 2025, just recently, with 3 third-degree felony counts related to child sexual exploitation, allegedly engaged in several sexually explicit conversations within which he sought or attempted to seduce, lure, and entice a 14-year-old girl into engaging in multiple sexual acts, per a police affidavit. So that's the stuff that the Deseret News didn't want to tell its readers. Now, why that would be, I can only guess.
Would you say that as we've been doing the newscast now, what has it been? 2 years, 3 years?
Almost 2 years.
2 years. We've covered, I would say, at least 24 stories of some form of moral malfeasance in the sexual arena. Seems like at least half of those people served in high up prominent callings that the church claims discernment is available to the leaders calling them into place. I just want to note that if you're a child molester or abuser in Utah, or alleged, that there's a better than average chance you're a Mormon by far. I think 80%, 90% you're a Mormon. And then about maybe a 65% chance that you served in higher up callings of bishop or higher. And I just want to note that. That's strange. It's not like the media is only picking out the former church leaders who did things. These are just the people who got caught doing things. They're almost all Mormons, and most of them served in leadership positions.
Yep.
Anyway,
And like I
and
said,
big thanks-
that's why whenever I see an article like this, I check their leadership. And 9 out of 10 times, there's a very high up component in leadership.
That's what I was going to say. And big thanks to Rebecca, Biblioteca, and the good folks at Floodlit who look into those kinds of things, which don't typically get reported, and certainly not by the Deseret News.
one more thing. Maybe discernment does work, just not the way we wish it did.
I don't even know. Help me.
What I'm
Help me.
saying, what I'm saying is that this is a church that seems better than average. They have a statistically significant chance of calling the unhealthy, bad people into leadership positions.
Oh, they're discerning the bad guys, but they think it's the good guys, kind of like Joseph Smith thought he was translating Egyptian, but actually it was a revelation God was beaming into his head.
I'm not saying this literally. What I'm saying is it looks like they can discern the bad guys into leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying intentionally, but it does seem statistically better than not that the bad guys in Utah tend to be almost certainly to be Mormons and tend more than not to have served in high up leadership positions.
Okay. But guess what Rebecca found? Guess what Rebecca found? She found a video that this guy made and put up. And then she grabbed it and put it at Mormonish. So we're phoning this in from Mormonish. We're not going to play the whole thing. I understand the whole thing's about an hour. Is that right, Rebecca?
Yeah, it's talking about it's the video, and I linked it in my short if you want to go look for it on Mormonish. It's an interview with the gentleman we're discussing and someone else talking about the amazing life of President Ballard. That would be Apostle M. Russell Ballard, and there is a connection between this Deseret News reporter and Elder Ballard that goes back decades.
Let's find out what it is in the first minute or two, okay? And that's all we'll play. So if you want to see the whole thing, go to Mormonish, correct? The Facebook page, Rebecca?
Yeah, and on YouTube. It's a short.
Okay.
Well, at that time, President Ballard was Elder Ballard and was one of the managing directors of the church public affairs department where I worked. And so he had to read my columns before they could be sent out. And one day, out of the blue, I'd never met him. One day he poked his head into my office space and he said, "Hey, you write like I talk. We should get together." And of course I was delighted. And from that time, that was, and I think that was in 1991. From that time to this, he and I have worked together on a number of different projects, on books and on giving some ideas and things with conference talks. And whenever I say that, I want to be very clear about one thing. There was never one idea from me in any of his conference talks that I worked with. They were his ideas, they were his thoughts, and usually he had taken it and done a rough draft, and then I just kind of went in and made transitions a little clearer, or worked a little bit with language and things like that.
You could probably stop it there. That's the gist of it.
It is. That's the gist of it. Well, great minds think alike. What do you think, Rebecca?
Well, I was just really surprised. Somebody sent this to me and said, "Are you aware of this?" And I said I was not. So apparently since 1991, every conference talk that we have listened to from Elder Ballard has been run through, this gentleman here, and he's made edits and corrected things. And again, I just feel like poor Elder Ballard had probably the worst discernment I've ever heard of. he was bosom buddies with Tim Ballard. Now here he is working with this guy. But he also went on to say that he also helped pen Elder Ballard's biography, because he said that he knew, all of the stories, and he'd written up the stories in the conference talks. And so he was able to share Elder Ballard's experiences in a biography. So if you enjoyed a talk from Elder Ballard over the last 30 years, chances are that this guy had his hands all over it.
I think it's fair to say that nobody's ever enjoyed a talk by Elder Ballard.
Yeah, I was being polite.
I'll just say here, this guy looks like a good Mormon.
Mhm.
He's got that smile. He's got the rosy cheeks. He's got the light in his eyes. This is what, when you go into an LDS ward and you're like, that's one of the good guys right there. And this narrative that you can tell a Mormon from a non-Mormon that they've got that special glow. I just want you to know that that's what it looks like right there. This
I
guy.
just want to know what a 70-year-old is doing driving up to Layton to have a date with a 14-year-old girl, which is what he thinks. That's just crazy to me.
Did you see this comment? In his defense, 14 years old is traditional values in Mormonism.
I did. That was
That's a
very
good
funny.
one. So can I ask you a question, RFM? It says, that he sent pictures to this detective. So that seems like the case is pretty open and shut. If they actually have pictures that he sent, and isn't that kind of how it works or not?
If the detective and detectives, if they did it correctly, then there probably won't be a lot of wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
He would have to, when he was asked about it, he would have had to have known about what was going on when he said, "Oh, I don't have anything to say about this. I didn't hear this. This is the first time I'm hearing this." That doesn't ring true, right, RFM?
Well, I don't know all the details of this, but typically the way these things go down is that they put out the line and they get somebody to bite, and then they reel him in. And as they're reeling him in, they say, "Oh, by the way, I'm 14 years old and I'm really hot," and all this stuff. And then there is a date and a place and a time that is set for a meetup, and to bring something special. I don't know, lubricant or something, or condoms. Forgive me, but it's something that when they stop the guy, finally, when he's in the neighborhood, because they've got the whole place staked out, right, with undercover cop vehicles. And as soon as the guy shows up for the meet, of course, there is no 14-year-old. It's a fiction. And then they put the habeas corpus on him, and then they find, okay, oh, well, he's got condoms, he's got lubricant, right? And this is obviously the same guy. And it goes from there. But usually they get arrested at that point.
So are you saying he went as far as to try to do a meetup, and that's how they would have arrested him?
Yes.
Then how would he say, I have no knowledge of this, if he had been caught?
Perhaps he's having some memory loss.
Okay.
He says, "I don't know about the charges."
Okay. Maybe not specific charges.
Yeah.
I don't know that we teach that or know that, or I get those
Right.
words.
Better just not say anything, but some people can't help themselves.
Okay.
All right. So that's the second story
For two.
about SA stuff going. The first one is the mental health professional guy who is having women take off their shirts and bras and do handstands. Crazy stuff. And then, like in 2020, similar allegations from minors in a different place where he worked. And then the second one was this guy that we just got done talking about, which appears to be falling in a sting operation conducted by Layton police, thinking that he was going to have a date and then some with a 14-year-old girl. And then we've got the third story from Mr. Real.
Yeah, and this one, whereas the first two speak to the grossness of the alleged crime itself, and this crime is gross as well, but I think this story connects more with the believers who continue to stand up for those who have done things. So an Orem man, 44-year-old Richard Kirkland, named after the Costco brand, Mallard is his last name, was recently arrested and charged with multiple accounts of possessing child sexual abuse material. Court documents detail that investigators allegedly found hundreds of illicit files in his possession. Despite the seriousness of the charges, Mallard was released on bond while the legal process moves forward, drawing public concern and media attention. His case is still active, with hearings scheduled in Utah County's legal system. Now, here's where it gets interesting. But what makes the story bigger than just one man's alleged crimes is the way the surrounding community has responded. Several members of the LDS Church, some of them holding respected or high positions, such as Grant Jensen, Dean of the Physical and Math Sciences at Brigham Young, stepped forward to write letters on Mallard's behalf. These letters vouched for his character, speaking of his church service, professional life, his personal qualities, essentially asking the court to see him not only as an accused criminal, but also as a good man. The weight of these endorsements reveals how social capital inside Mormon culture can be leveraged in the face of disturbing allegations. And if you want to see what he said in his letter, we'll show that in a moment. Thanks, Rebecca, for cutting that out. That's going to make a great slide because I think it really hits the nail on the head. This isn't the first time the LDS community has rallied around someone accused of serious misconduct. Within Mormonism, character assessments often rely heavily on external markers of faithfulness, temple worthiness, professional status, or willingness to serve in church callings. Those who present well in these arenas often receive the benefit of the doubt, even when the evidence points in troubling directions. In practice, this can create a protective shield around alleged abusers and perpetuate a system where victims feel unseen and invalidated. Here's what was in the letter. And what strikes me is, you know immediately that he's trying to say this guy is a good Mormon in the ways that don't really matter in the world. So he wrote, he's also a deeply religious man. This is what BYU, Dean of Physical and Math Sciences, wrote in regarding Mallard's character. He's also a deeply religious man. We are both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the BYU College Dean wrote. As far as I could tell, he followed the teachings of the church. Now, I just want to note, he's telling the court system what the important teachings are of the church that allow you to discern whether someone is got good character or not. And he says, as far as I could tell, he followed all the teachings of the church, avoiding all alcohol, tobacco, coffee, tea, smoking, and illegal drugs.
Well, at least he avoided coffee.
At least. Can you imagine going, look, I know you saying he molested 30 kids. I know you said he has got kiddie porn on the computer. I know you're saying that he propositioned 14-year-olds on the internet, but he hasn't had a cup of coffee his entire life. And that's how we discern a good Mormon from a bad one. I have no reason to believe he was not completely faithful to his wife. Well, except for the kiddie porn pictures on his computer. In our interactions, he was always honest, kind, and trustworthy. I was completely shocked by his arrest.
Yeah.
Unquote. So there's the dean of BYU Math and Sciences. But the story takes another twisted turn. Rebecca, thanks to you. You are quite the detective on the weekly, and I appreciate you finding this. The story took an even stranger turn when connections began to surface between the alleged abuser, Richard Mallard, and BYU Dean Grant Jensen. Jensen's administrative assistant is a woman named Karen Mallard. An unverified source has claimed that Karen is married to Richard Mallard. It's his wife who works with the Dean of Math and Sciences, which would explain why the character letter was written by him. This revelation drags the scandal right up to the doorstep of BYU, where a dean actually vouched for his co-worker's spouse. If this is true, the very man now facing charges for child sexual abuse material. I went looking. I did a bunch of work after you pointed this to me, Rebecca. I went and tried to find a definitive connection. This is the best I could find. If you go look online you can do it with anybody. You can find as much information on the person as that entity will give you. And if you want more information, you got to pay. I didn't pay, but this is what you can get without having to pay. You can see that Richard Mallard, age 44, same guy. It says Rexburg, Idaho here, but it also has the other address, Orem, Utah. and is related to, and in one of the relations there is Karen Mallard. So again, based on what the internet search results says from this site, they are related. I have no reason to disbelieve that source, but I don't have any evidence that that's true. But it does seem highly likely since she does work at the school.
And she works in the science building. The ESC is the science building. So I'm guessing if you cross-check that address with that department, it would probably be the same, if not close, because that is the Eyring Science Building.
Mallard and Mallard. There you go. So I think there's enough here to say that this is likely, although don't have evidence that it's true. It's a stark reminder of how enmeshed church loyalty, academic standing, and family ties are in Mormon culture. In this system, it's not about the facts on the ground. It's about who you know, what title you hold, how well you play the part of a worthy Latter-day Saint, and you don't drink coffee and you pay your tithing. Taken together, this case highlights how Mormonism sets its believers up to judge character by the wrong criteria, rather than focusing on integrity, accountability, and how one treats the most vulnerable among us. Members are taught instead to see status, service, and outward check marks on the boxes of righteousness as proxies for goodness, and have had to justify the deceptions and dishonesty of even its top leaders. The tragic result is that top leaders and respected members are defended and excused even when they face allegations and charges for heinous crimes and malfeasance. So it's not just the average member of the ward that Mallard is. It's also when we look at the SEC and other things that have happened in the church, the leadership all the way up to the top get a break on every instance where it seems reasonable that they were dishonest and deceptive and did something wrong. The tragic result is its top leaders and respected members are defended and excused, even as they face allegations and charges for heinous crimes and malfeasance. The Mallard cases forces an uncomfortable but necessary question. Are church members trained to vouch for appearances at the expense of protecting children? And I think there's enough instances to make that a credible question. Thoughts from you guys? 3 sexual assault cases this week. I think we had 2 last week and maybe 2 the week before or something. These aren't going down. They're going up, folks. What do you guys think about this one?
I like to call this syndrome the "We love you, Brother Bundy" syndrome, where, as you know, Brother Bundy, we're talking about Ted Bundy, his ward made a big greeting card. You can look it up on Google, and it said, we love you, we're supporting you, we're behind you. How many times do we hear reports of the ward, members of the ward and leadership in a courtroom sitting on the side of the perpetrator, right? There is nobody sitting on the side of the victim. And there were several other stories or other letters of recommendation mentioned in that story. One was from a woman who said, he's so awesome at girls' camp. He's I think she said something like protector and a finder. He apparently volunteered and helped at girls' camp. So you're right. The people that serve, the people that are out there on the surface, following all the rules of Mormonism, they're the good guys. You would never imagine, maybe you're naive, I don't know what, you're just taught to maybe look at reputations on a superficial level. I think that is something that's very real, that you judge someone instantly by those outward indicators. But the other letters were just like that. I know he's a good guy because he did this in the ward. That's not always a good guy. People need to be on guard.
Go ahead, RFM.
I was just going to say, I take it from the story that these were letters written on his behalf at his bail hearing, one of his first hearings.
Yeah.
In order to get the judge, hopefully, to reduce bail from what it would otherwise have been. I mean, that's the whole point, right? It's very common practice to get as many letters as you can from people you think will impress the judge, saying hopefully things that will impress the judge. But of course, you also don't know everything that's going to impress the judge because he's not you. So you throw in everything you can that's positive about your guy. The thing that I think is interesting really about this is this point that you're driving at, Bill, which is that Mormons, that this seems to illustrate not just that Mormons, they have friends that they're going to try and help out, or maybe an employee's husband, possibly, that they want to help out with, and they've met him, but the fact that Mormons do tend to judge by this superficial Mormon righteousness, the box checking, and think that if that's good, then everything else must be peachy as well.
Yeah, and somebody noted, I thought I said it, I know it was definitely in the article, but he had 41 charges of having material on his computer. That's a lot.
And we should say the material was so horrific that the police officers who had to view it, to see what's going on, had to turn off the volume because it was so horrific, involving children. And that was mentioned in the article. So we're not talking about light stuff here, allegedly.
I also want to know LDS abuse. I'd love to know if this is you maybe trying to be snarky, or if this was a copy and paste from something you got online.
Oh, no, I found that too. I just found that on a book talk site where it mentions that she's married to Richard and lives in, yeah.
Well, that would just about seal the deal, wouldn't it? Currently, she lives in Orem, Utah with her husband, Richard, and their 3 children. In addition to writing, Karen also enjoys reading, knitting, and freelance.
Yeah, that husband part's probably going to be amended in the near future.
Yep. Well, he doesn't.
On a site called Book Database Online. So thank you in the chat for doing some research.
Thank you. He doesn't drink coffee, so maybe she stays.
Well, he just says, I don't know that he drinks coffee. I don't think that's no reason to believe he drinks coffee.
It's so hard to find a temple-worthy mate. You never know.
Well, and I did look him up, and I did not see any leadership in his past. So he's one of the few, like I said, about 9 out of 10, somebody's been in their church career or something, but I didn't find anything for him.
Well, that's the end of that.
His wife will be glad to know that at least he's been faithful to her.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And while the church will not purge these folks fast enough, Rebecca, you have a story about a purge.
I do. This is something that's interesting too. I know, The Purge. Have you guys ever seen that?
No.
No? Okay, fine.
I saw Weapons yesterday, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's the best movie of the summer as far as I'm concerned. But go ahead.
It's getting great reviews. I have not seen it yet. The Purge is a series about this idea that people live a regular life, but then one time during the year, anything goes, and you can go out and alleviate your aggressions, and you can murder. So anyway, The Purge. I think this is kind of what's happening. So if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the new gospel topics essays that dropped, and one of them was about plural marriage. And one statement that it made, I felt, was something directed right at people who some of us call polygamy deniers. They would call themselves fidelity affirmers or monogamy. There's a new phrase every time. Anyway, I'm just, they identify as fidelity affirmers and monogamy affirmers. So I took this statement that the church made. This was pretty direct. So the question asked in the essay and then answered is, did Joseph Smith practice plural marriage, or was it introduced by Brigham Young and others? And of course, this is the main theme behind the polygamy deniers. It wasn't Joseph Smith. He was faithful to only Emma, and Brigham Young is the one that introduced polygamy and all the hell that was unleashed after that. So the statement from the church says Joseph Smith introduced the practice, not Brigham Young. Boom, there it is. You can't be more clear than that. Credible contemporary sources, and one of those is the Nauvoo Expositor. We talked about that. Document Joseph's practice of plural marriage. Later, many faithful men and women who knew of Joseph's practice of plural marriage gave sworn testimony of it. So the church is doubling down here. Rather than deny, I feel like they use the word deny as a direct shout out, dog whistle to polygamy deniers. Rather than deny this historical practice, we can apply the principles outlined in Seeking Answers to Questions to help us better understand it. So this was in the essay, and I feel that this was a shot across the bow. If you don't know what that means, here's the definition. A shot across the bow derives from the naval practice of firing a cannon shot across the bow of an opponent's ship to show that you are prepared to do battle. You haven't hurt him yet. You haven't done anything yet, but this is it. You are shooting across the bow. We are coming for you, right? Because I think the church is finally waking up and realizing what a growing movement this is. I've talked about my story before of attending, this part 2, Who Killed Joseph Smith, and seeing a packed theater of over 500 people with these beliefs. So I think
that was years ago.
That was a couple years ago. Yeah. And I think that the LDS church is finally kind of sitting up and going, wait, what? These people are among us with their beliefs. So just last week, I came across 2 incidences of somebody who falls into that camp, fidelity affirmer, polygamy denier, being told, you got to take this down. So going after actual people, not
so
just
Michelle
saying,
Stone, of course.
Well, that's my next slide. But first, I'm going to
Oh, I'm
talk about this guy. Yeah, no, it's okay. I know. So what happened to this guy's channel? I'd never heard of his channel before. It's called The Saints, the Standard of Truth Restored. It says you've read Saints, you've heard the story, but what if the story wasn't the whole story, right? This is a podcast for those of us who have questions that can't be answered. We're opening the archives, re-examining assumptions. So basically, kind of like a Michelle Stone kind of a thing. They're going to look through things and they're going to be able to exonerate Joseph. He was faithful only to Emma. So this channel has only been up since February. It has maybe under 300 subscribers. I think only 6 videos. But all of a sudden, the poor guy had to put this video up. And we'll play just a few minutes of it. But he kind of describes an experience where he was hauled into the bishop and stake president's office and there was an ultimatum.
My wife and I were called in to meet with the stake president and the bishop about my channel and about speaking openly about my beliefs and opinions concerning Joseph Smith and my belief that he was not a polygamist and that polygamy did not originate with him. To keep it short and brief, we were asked to take down our channel or face church discipline. And they went straight to it of taking our membership away and having us excommunicated.
Okay, that's probably enough. It does go on past there, but here's a guy who just started a channel. These are his beliefs, and personally, like on the ground level, his stake president and bishop call him in and his wife and say, you're going to lose your membership if you don't take down your channel. He decided to take down his videos and he's going to try to create some other kind of content. He goes on to say that he had some spiritual experiences about being tried and tested like some of the prophets, and he arrived at the idea that, they should take this down for now. But again, right there, taking him straight to the bishop's office and saying, you're going to be excommunicated if you share these views. What do either of you think about that?
What I think is that it's an amazing time in church history where the leaders of the church are put in the position where they're not only having to talk about Joseph Smith's polygamy, which they did not do for 150 years, but that they're also having to defend it against members of the church who say, no, he was moral, he was upright, he was virtuous, he wouldn't do something as low down and dirty as the kind of polygamy that Joseph Smith is alleged to have done. And the church has to say, no, he was that low down and dirty.
He was horrible. That's right. And again, in the comments, I know I'm not necessarily defending him. I'm just saying in the real world, you can create whatever kind of channel you want. You can say whatever you want. You don't have this authority figure over your head that's threatening something meaningful in your life if you do that. So it's just kind of interesting. The last slide in this segment. Did you have something to say? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, to the point RFM just made, it's, I think, 2014 when the LDS Church acknowledges for the very first time in public or correlated material outside of Family Search where Joseph Smith is a polygamist. And now we're to the point where just a few shortly, again, if you ask, why did the church not tell us? It's because this is what would happen.
Yeah.
Changing your narrative 200 years into your history is going to cause problems. And it has. And so by now acknowledging just in the last few years that Joseph Smith was in fact a polygamist, even though we never told you up to this moment, is going to cause a lot of cognitive dissonance. And how some people have handled that is to just have Joseph Smith not be a polygamist. They've come a long way. It is interesting that the church is now punishing people for holding the view it wanted them to hold in 2013 and before.
Very good. I like that idea.
That's the irony, I think. And again, a lot of people in this camp, they start with the idea that they want to prove, and then they kind of work backwards toward it. We've heard that before. So
well, yes, they want Joseph Smith to be pure and virtuous, that they are willing to pour into it and then limit. Here's one of the chief leaders in this movement. They're willing to pour in hundreds and thousands of hours and an unlimited amount of mental gymnastics in order to make Joseph Smith as pure as the driven snow.
Yep. And I don't know if all of us recognize how many of these believers are just in your regular average ward. I think everybody in the chat probably knows one or two, probably has family members. You would be surprised if you start asking people how many are now kind of in this camp. Now, of course, you mentioned Michelle Stone, and we reported, widely on this a couple months ago, where she was brought in by her stake president and told, you take down all your videos. She had hundreds. She made money off this channel.
Mhm.
She was huge in this
Mhm.
arena, and she did it. She took the videos off her channel, but she put them onto her website. They were still available. They were still there, but she was no longer producing new material. And I'm talking these were episodes to rival Mormon stories length. They were detailed as they really tried to dig in and somehow, make Joseph monogamous again, if you want to make a hat. But interestingly, just this week, like I said, her materials did exist on her website. Here is what's on her website this time. This is Welcome to 132 Problems, Revisiting Mormon Polygamy. Notice it says, due to continued pressures from several sides, and when she took everything down at the beginning, she mentioned pressures, right? So due to continued pressure from several sides, Michelle has asked that her content be taken down for the foreseeable future. So now it's really gone. For questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via the contact us form. Those are the administrators. So now everything's really gone. And those were just two things that happened this week.
So, how's the journal going?
Yeah. Well, no, this is what's interesting. I have learned that she is working very diligently behind the scenes on the Journal of Mormon Polygamy and the next conference that they're going to have. So I'm confused by her role in all of this. But apparently she's following her leaders and the pressures and doing, at least on the surface, what they're telling her to do.
It'll be interesting to see where that goes, because my hunch is that she will not be able, you say she's working on a journal. She will not be able to abstain from speaking her mind forever. And there's a lot of us who, when push comes to shove, we play the game a little more intelligently just to see exactly where that little line is.
Looking at it from her point of view, and that Brigham Young is the guy who's the bad guy in all of this, right? And Joseph was wonderful, and Brigham Young even had something to do with his murder. And then everybody else since him has been apostate because they cut off from the keys and the restoration of the priesthood and everything. I mean, my goodness, if killing the prophet doesn't cut you off from the keys, nothing will. But now, from her point of view, the leadership is now leaning on her. The apostate leadership is leaning on her to stop talking about the truth, and she's going along with it. This is the part I don't get. It's not, it's not for me to get. It's her life, and she can make whatever decision she wants, but I'm just not understanding.
Right. I believe they believe the church is true and there is priesthood power within it. It's gone awry. They look at prophets, I think, as administrators, not necessarily somebody that's I don't know. They love the church. They want to stay in it. They can deconstruct to a certain point, but then they have to keep that romanticized origin story. That has to still be there. You can't make that push beyond that. So, but I agree with you, Bill. This new polygamy essay and saying Nauvoo expositor is a credible source, she must be chomping at the bit to get out there and get some information out, because this is her wheelhouse completely. And she's already done so much material on it. And here the church is shooting across her bow personally. This is all her. I bet she really wants to get out there.
There was somebody that came up in my feed who had taken one of her videos, at least one, in which she's responding to my argument about the affidavits in the Nauvoo expositor and uploading it on their channel.
Yeah.
And I saw that like a week ago.
Yeah, no, it's important. Your episode that you did, with Mormonish, where we helped you make your slides and then you did your presentation and did it on your own show. It is so important. To me, that's the smoking gun.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's not what I was driving at. What I was driving at is they're responding to it with her material anyway on somebody else's website. And I don't know. I just don't think the church is going to be willing to play along with all these from the church's position. Okay. It's got to look like she's playing games.
To your previous comment that you can't make sense of her essentially agreeing. She take her perspective. She thinks she's telling the truth. And what she's choosing to do is to go along with the church, sacrificing her own character in at least a way, in order to perpetuate what the church wants, to be quiet about the truth. When Mormonism, in spite of all of its unhealthiness, it does have its scriptures that teach us to step forward and tell the truth bravely, no matter what the consequences are. Abinadi is a great example from the scriptures. And yet often when believers, push comes to shove, they will choose not to be Abinadi because the church will punish them if they do. And they step aside and go quietly into the shadows.
Yeah. If I could address one thing that was said in the comment, they said they didn't think Michelle had anything to do with the Who Killed Joseph Smith movies. This was the first time I ever encountered Michelle. Is when my co-host and I had tickets. Steve Pinecker got them for us. We went to the premiere, 500 people. This is when we first started to get a sense of it before the movie premiered. Michelle Stone was one of the speakers. She spoke probably for 45 minutes, starting like at 9 o'clock at night. It went on forever. And this is the first time I heard her. And one of the most interesting things she said is that a lot of us with this belief, we're in your wards, and, don't force this on people. But if somebody seems receptive, interested, you can bring this up. I mean, this is the first time I had this idea that this group exists. And not only that, they might be evangelizing a little bit in different wards. So there is some connection because she did give a talk at that premiere. So it's interesting.
I guess we'll never find out.
We'll never
can't
know.
talk anymore.
You know what? I know she'll be back. I predict it. So anyway, that's all I had for that. The church is coming after polygamy deniers, monogamy affirmers, fidelity affirmers. I think it'll happen some more.
Well, in that story, everybody has to keep their mouth shut. But you know who's not keeping their mouth shut? It's Australia. So recently, the Financial Review, we covered this maybe 2 weeks ago. Mormon churches, 490 million in Australian dollars, buying up land in Australia. And Australia had enough. They were beginning to talk behind the scenes in political circles about changing the rules and not having a free trade agreement that allowed U.S. entities to come into the country and to buy up all of its land. You know who else is not keeping their mouth shut? It's the LDS Church in responding to the story. The church, on its website, has an article, Does the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints own farms in Australia? This story became big enough that the church felt a need to have to address it. On the 21st of August, 2025, the church published a response claiming the headlines were misleading. Yes, Elkira Farms is a subsidiary of Farmland Reserve, and it did purchase the properties, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints itself didn't buy the farms. They emphasized that Elkira Farms operates as a for-profit, tax-paying entity managed by Australian professionals. It isn't run by missionaries and exists to support the church's mission, not to enrich it.
Now, every single thing in that second paragraph has nothing to do with the truth of the first.
Exactly.
And it's also a lie anyway. And I'll give another thanks to Rebecca, but they're lying there, and we'll show it coming out of their own mouth. I just want to note, the church owns lots of subsidiaries. We'll show some of those here in a moment. Those subsidiaries do the business side of the church on behalf of the church. Many of them don't pay taxes because they're in this country. And in this country, the laws allow subsidiaries that would normally be for-profit businesses to have to pay taxes. But the church can simply list them as a subsidiary. They send in the nonprofit 990, and all they have to do is explain, we're a subsidiary of a nonprofit. We don't pay taxes. The reason this one doesn't fly is only because it's in Australia. But it is owned by the church. Elkira Farms is a subsidiary of Farmland Reserve, which is a subsidiary of the Church of Jesus Christ, or Corporation of the President, or whatever the name is going for the moment. But everything in that second paragraph, you're right, RFM, but part of it is even dishonest. So let's be real. This is textbook semantics. Whether framed as Farmland Reserve or Elkira Farms or not the church, the fact remains, every level of this structure is church-owned and exists at the root of the ecclesiastical entity. The church can't wash its hands of these purchases by pointing to a tangled corporate hierarchy. It's still LDS land accumulation, period. If it's feeding the church's mission or financial reserves, it's still the church. Now, I'll just note, I asked AI to list all the subsidiary companies of the LDS Church, and before it told me what it could find, here's what it said. And by the way, AI is great. If you're a believer out there, take your hard questions about troublesome issues in the church, go to AI, go to ChatGPT, and ask it for an honest answer on which side it takes of the critic or the believing side, the faithful side, about the book of Abraham, about anything out there, the race in the priesthood, whether Joseph Smith could speak Adamic language, whatever it is. But when I asked AI to name all the subsidiary companies, it answered, quote, "I need to set expectations here. There's no public master list of every single entity the LDS Church owns or controls. They deliberately use complex network of subsidiaries, holding companies, and trust, many in the US and abroad, that make it difficult to map comprehensively." That's ChatGPT. It knows the truth. I didn't have to feed it any parameters. It knew that.
This is why they warn against it over and over. Gong just said, AI is not God. Don't go there.
It's like the church is mad that the public isn't falling for their ruse. You're supposed to fall for this. This is a shell. This is not a shell. This is a company. This is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Mormon Church, and you're supposed to not think that we're the ones doing things through it. It's like a kid who says, "I didn't hit you in the face. My fist hit you."
Yeah. And so I wanted to name, we'll show another image here in a moment that Rebecca caught. I think maybe Landon got this and you passed it along to me. But these are some of the company. Again, some of the companies, because as even ChatGPT understands, and we can easily see from things like the 13 dummy companies in the SEC, the church often doesn't want you to have information. So it hides things under a layer in order for you not to be able to locate it. For instance, Elkira Farms isn't an easy thing to figure out the church owns, because Elkira Farms is a subsidiary of Farmland Reserve, which is a subsidiary of Corporation of the President, which is part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or maybe is. But I'll just note here, financial investment arms, Ensign Peak, Beneficial Life, Property Reserve, Deseret Management Corporation. Media, Deseret News, Bonneville International, KSL, Deseret Book, Excel Entertainment Group. Real estate, Agriculture Resource. They got Ag Reserves, Farmland Reserves, Elkira Farms, Deseret Ranches, Property Reserve Incorporated. Education, BYU Idaho, BYU Hawaii.
So Elkira Farms is specifically the real estate company that the church has operating in Australia.
Yes. Because if it was a U.S. company, it would fall under the church in such a way that it wouldn't have to pay taxes. But because the laws in Australia require this entity to pay taxes, the church must then open a new company in Australia and then have it be a subsidiary of its non-tax-paying for-profit, because that non-tax-paying for-profit is under a non-profit, no tax-paying entity. It all gets confusing, doesn't it, RFM?
Yes, it certainly does. I think that's the point.
Yeah, it is. So Ensign College, LDS Business College, and then they got Bonneville Communications, Temple Square Hospitality, Deseret Mutual Benefit Administrations, and there are countless others. I'll leave it up to you to go digging to find those. They're not easy to find, but there are websites out there that do explore that and list about that many more companies that the church has its hand in. Now, here's where it gets, remember that slide? I'm going to go back here. They emphasized that Elkira Farms operates as a for-profit tax-paying entity. This is the LDS Church on their website, managed by Australia professionals, isn't run by missionaries, and exists to support the church's mission, not to enrich it. Now, here's what the church says. This is what Farmland Reserve says about its own mission. And it's that middle paragraph. For nearly 100 years, Farmland Reserve has invested in agriculture as a safe prudent way to preserve and grow the church's financial reserves, aka to enrich it. Here's, they say so many contradictory things that they don't know what one side of the mouth is saying when the other one's lips are moving.
You get the idea that they just say whatever's convenient at the moment.
They do. You might want to tell Farmland Reserves LDS Church that their job is not to enrich the church, because they seem to think that it is. So there's that. I think that's the last one. It is this church. If we really just start with the premise, to the believers out there watching the Mormon Newscast, if you just start with the premise that your leaders are dishonest, and at least in part because they do want to get as much money collected in this monstrosity as possible, then a lot of things start to make a lot more sense. Your guys' thoughts on this story?
I think Australia is awesome because of transparency laws that don't exist other places. Australia and other countries, they're just going to catch things, right? And they're going to hold the LDS Church to task. We can learn a lot from Australia. Absolutely. So yeah, it's interesting though, because the statement that the church made, it works. Over on my Mormonish, sorry, my dog is scratching if you can hear that. Over on the Mormonish Facebook page, I'm in an argument with several people who are towing that party line, saying it's not the church, it's property reserve, and they will not back down. And that's what the statement said, no matter how many, these kinds of slides I put on there. So the statement, I think, is for members, just to assure them nothing to see here, nothing wrong, it's all okay.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that the church thought it was important enough. They were so defensive as to issue anything, much less this blatant misrepresentation. I hope Rebecca's okay. Maybe something to do with her dog. She said her dog was scratching. Is your dog still there? Is Angry Alice aboard?
Yes, Angry Alice and another dog, Addie. Everybody had to come in and see what was going on. So now they're going to want out in like another second. So I'll do my story, and then I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, well, I think we're ready.
Are we ready? Any more on that?
No. I just want to say, are you guys, take yourself out of Mormonism for a minute. Doesn't it pretend to be an outsider? You're not a Mormon, and you just suddenly go like, I want to learn about Mormonism and how the church represents itself. Wouldn't it surprise you how much it lies in order to keep a certain narrative going? It would surprise it doesn't, because I've been in it, but if I was an outsider, it would surprise the hell out of me how much it lies on a regular basis.
It's one of the reasons, along with stories that we covered earlier and other things, that made me finally conclude that even if the Book of Mormon were true, the church wouldn't be worth joining.
There you go. All right. I've said enough. Here's the next story.
I think you're not wrong. All right. And you know what? We're going to be talking about property reserve in this story too, with a little bit more evidence to shed on this. So this has to do with parking, right? This story came out a week ago, right after the newscast, I think. So we didn't cover it. Salt Lake Plaza Hotel, big hotel in downtown Salt Lake. I used to go there and eat at the JB's restaurant, which is on the ground floor after we went to concerts and stuff in college. I bet a lot of you guys that went to BYU know about this hotel. It is going to be closed down and demolished later this year, right? It's going to cease operations on November 1st. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announced on Tuesday. Why would the church be announcing that a hotel is going to close down? That's kind of interesting. Well, it's because, they don't own it, right? Property Reserve owns it. So it says the hotel's closing due to rising costs to maintain, operate, and update it, right? It was built in the 70s. And here's where it gets interesting. They are going to raise the hotel and the parking structure that exists there, and they're going to put in a parking lot, like the song, right? Put in a parking lot for the Salt Lake Temple open house, because that's coming up in 2027. And people are going to flock to it from all over the world because it's going to rival the Vatican. And so they're going to make it into a huge parking lot to accommodate all those new visitors that are coming. Says the hotel is currently owned by Property Reserve. And it says in the article, the real estate investment arm of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. After it closes, right? Ownership will be transferred back to the church and the demolition will begin. Somebody in the chat said money laundering. I don't know. I think you can kind of look at it that way, isn't it?
I don't know if it's money laundering any more than it is if you've got a savings account and a checking account.
Yeah, and you're moving.
You go into your bank thing and you transfer money back and forth. And if you got 15 accounts or 150 of them, you can do that all day long, I suppose. and think
Yep.
you're accomplishing something when actually you're not, because you still have the same amount no matter what account it's in.
Yep, no, that's a good analogy. I see that. But anyway, it's kind of a back and forth, like a shell game, sort of. But the bottom line is a parking lot. They say that the parking lot is going to have landscaping that's complementary to Temple Square. So it's kind of going to look like an extension of the Temple Square area, and similar to the Family Search Library during the open house. So I don't know if they'll rip the landscaping out after that, but they're going to put it in. The hotel has 150 rooms. And like I said, it already has a parking structure for 40 cars. So that was kind of the announcement. Interesting. The church is going to tear down a building it owns, and it's going to build a parking lot. Okay.
Rebecca,
Yes.
just thinking about it a little bit longer, it may be a little bit more complex than that, because we are dealing with a church, and possibly this is probably a for business arm, I'm guessing,
Well,
as a hotel. So it may have tax implications to transfer it back from the real estate arm to the church.
Yep, I think that's why they have to do it. There's some wiggliness there for sure. So of course, my next slide is fascinating. So what's the problem, right? Well, a few days later, there's another article that comes out, and it says the LDS Church's plan for the parking lot at the Plaza Hotel site downtown likely violates city rules. Well, isn't that interesting? And the reason it does is because they didn't really talk to the city about this. They just kind of announced they were going to do it. So here it says, when an investment arm of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announced plans to demolish its Plaza Hotel and shutter the JB restaurant, sad about that, and build a temporary parking lot in the place near Temple Square, it overlooked one potential problem. City code may not allow that kind of move. So according to the city ordinance, which was just barely updated like a month ago, it's too bad they couldn't have gotten a hold of that, city council before that. Salt Lake will not permit surface parking lots in downtown area if they aren't associated with the building. So, you have a store, you can have a parking lot, but if there's no building, they're going to tear down their building and just have an independent parking lot. According to these new zoning codes, that's not going to happen. So there's a potential conflict between the city, which is trying to shore up its policies, because like a third of downtown is already parking. So it's trying to take care of this problem. And then, of course, they say between the city and the most influential landowner in downtown. And we're talking about the LDS Church. And again, it keeps referring to Property Reserve, the hotel's owner, as the real estate investment arm of the LDS Church. So they're just linking it just like this. They keep, despite what that other statement said, this article and others like it are calling it, hand in glove. So it says that following the demolition, the entire hotel site is going to be transferred to the church, used as a parking lot for the open house. We talked about that, a surface parking lot. And they say that the church hasn't really said, why don't you just keep the hotel and the 40 slot parking structure as it exists? They haven't really commented on that. And in fact, they haven't even really got a hold of the city to kind of let them even know what's going on. So when you talk about the zoning rules that regulate the parking in downtown, that's where you're going to run into these complications. So it's currently in a central business district, but as we said earlier this month, the zoning was changed. It can only be associated with the building, and it also has to be located behind or on the side of a building. So they're trying to stay away from this. I mean, look what it already looks like on my slide. Just a huge parking lot, right? They're trying to have business parking lot, all kind of integrated there. It also would require a setback and limited to a single parking row or aisle, and different rules about facing the street. Anyway, there's a lot of codes and zoning that is going into this idea of keeping it not just looking like one giant parking lot. And so there are definitely some questions as to what the church is planning to do, if that's even legal. It also says that the parking lot zone, the new zoning, caps it out at 40 stalls. Again, they already have a parking structure with 40 stalls, but they want this nice parking lot that's landscaped just like the temple. Now it says not only does Property Reserve own the hotel and the parking structure, the real estate company also owns the lot directly to the west, which is a 10-acre lot, and it's an entire city block that's dedicated already to surface parking. Nearly a third of downtown is already a giant parking lot. And if you've been downtown, like most of us have, you know what I'm talking about. So the church spoke out and said they're not aware, or the city spoke out. The city is not aware of plans ahead of Tuesday's announcement. So that's That's how the church operates. A lot of times, they will announce something and the cities will say, I had no idea about that. This happens all the time. Nor have they received any kind of a proposal regarding the parking lot. A church spokesman, actually not a church spokesman, I misspoke. It's a property reserve spokesman, issued a statement and said, as we prepare to transfer the property to the church following the closure of the hotel, Property Reserve will be collaborating with church facilities managers to review plans for the site with the Salt Lake City's planning department to obtain the required approvals. So they're just saying, yeah, we'll do what we have to do. And now,
Rebecca?
yes.
I think we had a question from the back of the class earlier.
Oh, please. If you can hear me over my dog scratching, oh my gosh, go ahead.
Just a little note. If you'll remember, Dale Bills, who is the spokesman for the planning division of property management, is also the same church spokesman who in 2006 said the belief that Christ was married has never been official church doctrine. He used to be a church spokesman. It's neither sanctioned nor taught by the church. While it was true that a few church leaders in the mid-1800s expressed their opinions on the matter, it was not then, it is not now church doctrine. I just want to note, Dale Bills has never left employment of the church. It ties into the last story we just did about the church denying that the property purchasing company is the church enriching itself. I'll just note Dale Bills might work for a different subsidiary of the church today, but he still works for the church. And I just wanted to make sure that folks knew that who Dale Bills was.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I did not realize that either.
On a little note too, there is a solution for this. Our lupa, I think, could be a solution. New doctrine incoming. Size of the parking garage is a symbol of our faith.
Yeah.
Can't stop us if we say it,
Nope,
I imagine the church will get a variance.
What
It'll
are
get a
them?
variance.
I imagine the church will get a variance.
It will.
Well, and this is what we're saying. Yeah, true to form, they're going to have to request a variance or some kind of something. It says, yes, the only way the parking lot plan would comply with the city code would be to either obtain a zoning change from the city or to request a significant variance on the parking rules. That is nothing new. As I have in this meme, now we're talking. They know how to get those variances. They know how to get those zoning changes. Absolutely. So
The problem will be finding a Mormon on the city council.
I don't really think that would be a problem whatsoever. So, but they do bring up the fact that the Delta Center is right now requesting a zoning because there's all this new building and growth for entertainment and sports. And so they're saying they need more parking. So if the city grants that to the Delta Center, how are they going to say no to the church? They're going to have to get a variance. Even though they say it could be a difficult sell because there's so much mass transit down there in Temple Square area. You can pretty much take the front runner tracks, all that kind of stuff. But I just think it's ironic again that the church needs to get that variance and zoning code changed, and they didn't really look into this ahead of time. They just said this is what we're doing and we're going to make it fit. And again, throughout these two articles, they talked over and over, harken back to Bill's article about property reserve, turning things over to the church, being a part of the church. So we'll keep an eye on this. We'll see what happens.
Crazy. Okay. All right. What do we got
I think
here?
I have the very last story, unless you have one. There's like a teeny tiny little one right here after this. Keep going.
Yep. That one
Keep
there.
going. Nope. You have the next story.
Oh, yeah. I'll be really fast here.
Yeah.
I don't need to read all of this. I saw this last week and I didn't put it into last week's show, but the Salt Lake Tribune, I just moved to Cedar City from Washington, Utah, where all the crime stories happen, RFM. I live in Cedar City, where the only thing that's really happening here is we're running out of water. And I remember 4 or 5 articles over the last few years about different places in the state of Utah running out of water. So here's Cedar City running out of water. This was an article last week. Here's the Salt Lake Tribune. Great Salt Lake again dips to scary low level. This was 2025. This was July of 2025.
When I was down there, they were having clouds of dust from, I'm guessing, recently exposed beaches, of the Great Salt Lake blowing into Salt Lake City. And I was inhaling like thousands of microscopic fossils or something.
Yeah. To that point, the issue is not just that we're not going to have water at some point. By the way, I'll just note, it's not just a few dry years. It's a drought that's lasted 25 years and could stretch to mid-century or beyond. Experts warn that if the mega drought doesn't break soon, Colorado River lifelines and Utah's water future hang by a thread, one that can't be saved by a white horse. As you pointed out, I think it's in the next slide after this one, Utah has water problems. What if the mega drought lasts another 25 years? This is 2025 as well. This is August 9th. Washington Post. As the Great Salt Lake dries up, clouds of dangerous dust blow into boom towns. So as you point out, RFM, it's not just the lack of water. People are moving into Utah. Cedar City has got houses being built everywhere. Southern Utah, Washington, St. George, Hurricane. The growth there is among the top in the country in terms of new housing and apartments and condos and townhouses being built. So it's not just that water is going down, 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 but it's more and more people coming in, and that only makes the problem exponentially worse. So it's not just the lack of water, but it's also that when the water disappears, often the land that's underneath that water contains certain properties that, when dry and blowing around, are actually deeply harmful to us. So the fallout isn't just environmental. 300 Utah doctors declaring it a health emergency, urging the legislature to act. Dust storms aren't just inconvenient, they're a public health threat that forces us to confront dust as disease. All right, so there's that. Some southern Utah reservoirs at concerning water levels. This is recent too. This was May 5th of 2025. Just a month ago, the lake dropped again into what resource managers call scary low territory, near the 2022 record low of 4,188.5 feet. When that water disappears, brine flies die, birds starve, and the delicate ecosystem plummets into collapse. So it's not only poisonous dust, there's no water, all the animals die. And then the Idaho Capital Sun, severe drought causing Utah reservoir levels to drop at a concerning rate. And so I'll just note, not necessarily Mormon news specifically, but the water's running out in Zion, folks, and something's got to give sooner or later. Otherwise, it will be people moving back out as fast as they came in. I'll certainly ask you guys for your comments, but we can feel free to just move on. But I did think it was at least noteworthy to the audience, because half of our audience resides in Utah, and it's at least noteworthy that Utah is running out of water everywhere. Salt Lake, Southern Utah, Cedar City, it's all going by the wayside. So there we go. Anything?
Here's what I've seen. I've seen an increase in letters from stakes and wards on Fast Sunday talking about praying for rain. But not only praying for rain, all these letters say, pay your tithing and a generous fast offering. So give all this money to the LDS Church so that it will rain. What if you took that money and donated it to, I don't know, are there organizations that are looking into, how to optimize the resources, the water resources here in Utah? No, these letters say, make sure that you give a generous fast offering and your tithing to the church and go to the temple. And somehow that's going to make it rain. My other comment is the Heber, Utah temple, right? It's gotten approval. There's one last lawsuit, but it looks like it's probably going to happen. Once they start building, they are going to be pumping millions of gallons initially out of the groundwater, right? And then on a daily basis, they are going to have to pump another 1 million gallons of water. I say you don't do that. You leave your groundwater there. You don't know what's coming. You don't know what's going to happen. This is, I think, egregious. I'm hoping maybe it'll make them reconsider the location, because they're going to be pumping away millions of gallons of water from that location in Heber.
Maybe they need to pump it out to someplace that needs it.
And maybe that's what needs to happen. But I say leave the groundwater alone. It's there for a reason,
Have you ever driven by a LDS ward building that didn't have tons of green grass?
Yeah. They're getting better at that. I mean, I think because of public shame. But look at the temple. They pull out landscaping. They throw away flowers. They have green grass. They could do a lot. Their sprinklers are often going when everybody else's are not. So you're right.
You can guarantee one of the top 3 users of water in the state of Utah is the LDS Church. Yeah. All right. A couple other stories here. Rebecca, what do you have here for us?
Yeah, I think I have this last one. Unless, did you have any more comments about water, RFM? You seem to know about the dust. That's really good.
Yeah, I think I still got it in my lungs.
Yeah. Well, it's not a joke. Absolutely. So I thought this was interesting. This article, the headline, Utah's pound pumpkin spice lattes amid shifting Mormon norms. This is the short article. Do either of you enjoy a pumpkin spice latte now and then?
No, never when I was a
No.
practicing Mormon.
What about now that you're not?
I guess I could be persuaded to.
Yeah. What about you, Bill? Ever tried one?
I drink a lot of lattes and coffees, but
Oh.
not really one to dive into the pumpkin flavor.
I'm suggesting both of you try it. Pumpkin season is right around the corner. We're talking pumpkin bath gel, pumpkin lattes. Come on, get into the season. Anyway, this is interesting because this is based on data from DoorDash, right? Because they keep track of what they deliver and whom they deliver it to. So it says, Utah is ordering more pumpkin spice lattes than almost any other state, according to DoorDash. Utah's ordered more. We're going to call it the PSL, right? That's the lingo, per capita than residents in all but 3 states, Alaska, Montana, and Oregon. They're guzzling it more than Utah, but still, this is pretty incredible given the demographic of Utah, which is still maybe not predominantly Mormon, but there's a huge LDS presence. So between August 1st and December 1st of last year, 2024, this is the data that they were number 4 in the nation for delivery of the PSL pumpkin spice latte. And why is this interesting? This is interesting because of the word of wisdom, right? We're not supposed to be drinking coffee. LDS people are not supposed to be drinking coffee. As Bill talked about, it's an indicator of how faithful of a Mormon you are and whether you're more likely to commit a crime. I don't
If you're
know.
drinking coffee, who knows what you might be doing?
That's what I'm saying. If I'm holding that mug, who knows what I'm capable of. So this article on Axios talks kind of about the cultural shift that is happening. And I see this too when I talk to people who are friends with young Latter-day Saints, like we're talking the under 30 crowd. A lot of them are just saying, I'm drinking coffee. I'm just doing it. I don't see a reason not to. It's between me and God, and I'm okay to do it. They say the same thing with garments. I'm not going to wear my garments right now. It's between me and my maker. And it's just a very different attitude than the rest of us had. Maybe we were more scared back then. I don't know.
We were more faithful.
I don't know. I think maybe
we were
more
less
scared.
hypocritical.
We were less hypocritical. That could be it. So anyway, just kind of an interesting thing. And they talked about Lindsay Sterling, right? She's a famous violinist. She's LDS. They love to look at her as, this quintessential LDS influencer and star. And she was seen with a coffee, right? All hell broke loose. Everybody went nuts. And she responded and said, on paper, it may seem like I'm not active LDS anymore, right? When people are asking her about it, because I actively support the LGBTQ community. I wear sleeveless shirts sometimes, and now drinking coffee. And she says, for way too long, I'd find my connection to God by a huge list of rules, like we talked about earlier. I don't let shame govern me anymore. And surprisingly, I felt God's love even more. This is what I'm talking about. Everything is on my terms, what works for me. So I don't know if they'll ever get the message and sort of change the word of wisdom. I mean, we all know how that's dicey anyway. But I believe a lot of especially younger LDS people are just saying, you know what, I'm just going to live it on my terms. So anyway, pumpkin spice latte, any thoughts? And then I think we're done.
No, I'm really disappointed in Lindsay.
Oh.
It does seem like from a LDS perspective, it's the slow path of apostasy.
Yes.
She became an LGBTQ ally. Then she started wearing sleeveless shirts. Of course, now she can continue to wear the garment with those. And now she even drinks coffee. But from a non-believing perspective, you might say, how can one drink coffee and feel God's love? And I would say only having a coffee in the morning are you going to be able to confidently feel God's love. Coffee is my secret weapon to take on the day.
Didn't Benjamin Franklin say something similar about beer? That's how we know. That's one of the ways we know that God loves us, because he gave us beer.
Give us beer. That's the next step. And remember that widely shared clip of the Sister in Conference that told the story of one
Oh, yes.
cup of coffee. I mean, this is presented to us as if, this ancestor woman had a coffee pot and one cup of coffee, and it kept her entire family out of heaven, all of her posterity. So it is that important, or at least it used to be presented that way.
Yeah, well, not anymore. Now it's the cool thing for Mormons to do, and more of them are doing it. I had an article maybe 2 months ago on coffee usage among Latter-day Saints was quite increasing. That there was a Starbucks going in next to BYU and Provo.
Yep.
And folks were just noting that Mormons, especially younger Mormons, were like, the hell with it. I'm going to live this religion the way I want to. And often it comes with supporting the LGBT community, wearing sleeveless shirts, and drinking coffee. And the church doesn't seem to be making too much of a fuss about it. They seem to notice that the best thing they can do is just keep their mouth shut and let it happen.
They have lost all control.
They have.
By the way, let me correct the record, because apparently this is an incorrect attribution.
Oh, is it?
The attribution is about beer. Is about Benjamin Franklin saying beer is proof God loves us. Apparently, he did not say that. What he did say was in a letter that he wrote saying wine is constant proof that God loves us and loves to see us happy. The misattribution of this quote to beer likely stems from a misinterpretation or historical error, as Franklin was known to favor wine. So there you go. You learned something new tonight.
Well, they're both against the word of wisdom. And I have to say that it used to be, if you wanted to subtly let people know where your faith was or that you'd stepped away, you would wear this, or you would hold up your Starbucks cup in a picture, a social media post, and everybody would know. You didn't have to say it. It was like, okay, she's left, without making a big declaration, which some people don't want to do. Now I could wear this, hold up my Starbucks cup. People would think I was the Relief Society president. So I want to know what I need to do now to indicate that I'm a post-Mormon. I can't figure it out.
And the dean of math and science, who would he say is the better Mormon?
Exactly.
Mr. Mallard or this social media influencer?
Not Lindsay Sterling. Nope. She drinking coffee. No letter of recommendation from me.
Mormonism, always on the wrong side of things. You are. All right. Well, let's see here. You've got a little note here, Rebecca, about Labor Day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we all talked about it, and we're going to let everybody, just without the guilt of feeling that you're missing the Mormon Newscast, go out and spend time with your family, right? Because we know if we chose to broadcast, you guys would leave the picnic, you would go inside, and you would watch the newscast. So we're going to take a break, and we will be back. Oh my gosh, September 8th. Can you believe it's already September? But we will not be there next Monday. Everybody go out and have a fantastic end of summer shindig, and we will see you all back on September 8th.
Yep. Thank you.
You're going to sing "See You in September."
Yeah.
Or God be with you till we meet again.
Oh, we can sing that.
On the radar. So things that we've got coming up. Rebecca, I will start with you.
Yes, I have a very interesting episode with our friend Steve Pinecker. Everybody knows Steve, our favorite evangelical and Switzerland, as it's called, because he talks to so many different people in the restoration. And the title of the episode is "How Far into Mainstream Christianity is the LDS Church Willing to Go?" We report about this a lot on the newscast, all the different things that are happening: Good Friday, Palm Sunday, sharing the good news, Christian rock. They just seem to be inching. But my question that we discussed with Steve is there a point where, nope, we're not going to budge on that? And I don't know, you might be interested to see what we came up with, but this will be Tuesday night, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Let's explore mainstream Christian Mormons. They exist.
And the church is slowly, subtly heading that way. It wants to be, I think, to some degree, it wants to go under the radar and look like any other church. So there's that. Go ahead.
Hard stops there where it's not going to look like any other church. I think we can all probably guess what some of those are.
Yeah. RFM, you put an episode out Saturday. Tell us about that.
That is an episode in which I recapitulate the argument and the paper and the research that David P. Wright, former professor of BYU, put together, was published in 1993 and got him excommunicated in 1994 And the paper had to do with noting the similarities between the Epistle to the Hebrews in the New Testament and the Book of Mormon, specifically Alma chapters 12 and 13. I go over that. It's fascinating because not only does it establish the borrowings beyond a reasonable doubt, but also it gives me and all of us an insight into how it was that Joseph Smith used these texts and what he did with them. A lot of times when he didn't copy them exactly, there was method in his madness. And so this is a very important tool, I think, in interpreting Joseph Smith's use of biblical texts or other texts that he might have thought were scriptural.
Excellent. And then Wednesday, you've got Wednesday's episode for Mormonism Live. What are we going to be going into there?
No peace to the wicked. Yes, I've got Wednesday's episode, and it's going to be kind of in two parts, roughly. One of the things we're going to talk about, we're going to have Jim Bennett on, fresh back from Argentina and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir's tour thereof, or the Tabernacle Choir, the Cats, the T-Cats, the Temple Choir. What's it called now?
Nobody knows. Taco Sea Choir, something like that. They really shot themselves in the foot when they rebranded themselves.
The choir at Temple Square. No, the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. That's why it's T-Cats.
Taco Cats Choir.
Okay, that's it. Yes. And Jim's going to talk to us about his recent debate with Jacob Hansen. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Want to get everybody's opinions on that. If you watched it, if you haven't watched it before then, it's certainly, I think it's certainly interesting. Some people didn't find it as interesting. I thought it was interesting in that overall what I saw was Jim Bennett really, really crush Jacob Hansen like a little cockroach under his foot. And every time Jacob Hansen tried to run away and scurry away, for one of those holes in the wall, Jim Bennett would bring him back. And what I'm talking about scurrying away is change the subject or use one of his little devices in order to try and avoid answering the question, or to go off over here, or to reframe the issue. It's Jacob Hansen. You can actually see the little malevolent wheels turning in his head while he's thinking about it. It's an amazing thing, really. But Jim keeps bringing him back, and he crushes him again. And he goes off and tries to do something. Come back. This is the issue. Crush, crush, crush. And some people didn't think Jim did as well as I did. I really thought he did a good job. But we're going to talk about that, so everybody can have their say. And then the second half, by the way, we may have a very, very special guest. We have plans to have such a super special guest. I just can't even announce who this guest is. That's how special they are. An hour into the show. Okay. So an hour into the show on Monday, we'll just do the trumpets, release the pigeons, and hopefully we're going to have our special guest.
This is Wednesday. This is Mormonism Live.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting. And I have some breaking news once you finish talking about
Did it just break now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll just finish this. Is it about President Nelson?
No, it's not.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
No, I know. I know I scared you guys by saying that. No, this is more serious breaking news.
It's more serious than that?
It's unfortunate breaking news.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Well, the other part of this, the show, is we're going to be talking about an uncomfortable faith, inconvenient, an inconvenient faith.
That's
serious. Trouble. It's an inconvenient truth. It's riffing off that. An inconvenient faith, which is 9 parts, has just dropped on YouTube. Apparently, it was filmed around 5 to 6 years ago. Bill Reel's in it. John DeLyn's in it. Jim Bennett's in it. And he'll be here, and we'll be talking with him about it as well. And also you, and I think we're going to get Colby involved. We're just going to have everybody in here. Rebecca, you're welcome to join us too if you're not doing anything on Wednesday night to talk about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And there may be some sparks flying. And once again, there's going to be that special, hopefully at the hour mark. Now, Rebecca, what is this horrible news that just broke?
Well, and you've been clipping things from that series and kind of putting them out, little sound bites, which have been really interesting. The nuggets that you gather from the episodes.
I've got about 9 of those. And so we'll be playing those and commenting on them, because the thing is that you got people who are members of the church, who are the apologists. You got Patrick Mason. You've got Jim Bennett. You got people who are trying to put the church in the best light they can on 9, difficult issues. And then you've got the people who are on the other side of that, maybe the post-Mormon side, and trying to talk about the other side of the issue, which isn't the way the church is representing it, right? The thing is that everybody's very nice. Nobody's yelling. Nobody's doing any names or anything like that. and that's refreshing. But the problem is that this is what inevitably happens, is that the church, when it's put in a position where it has its own advocates and has other people talking from the other side, in other words, the other side gets a place at the table, the church inevitably looks bad. And not only does it look bad, the people who are advocating for it, when you see it in light of what the other people are saying, which is the truth, they really don't win the argument. And I know some people were thinking and are thinking, have the opinion this was very pro LDS. It was slanted that way. And other people are looking at it the other way. I think it's just that when the church has a chance to represent itself in a way that actually acknowledges the problematic history, it really, really doesn't come across to the regular person as anything that a normal person would believe. The excuses. I think you know what I mean. And we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. Rebecca?
Wow. So Martine, our friend, just sent us something unfortunate that happened, but RFM will get this reference. I'm having a Mary Tyler Moore incident, so I'm gonna let Bill read it. I just messaged it to you.
A little seltzer, a little song, a little dance, Rebecca.
Yeah,
a
stop.
Little seltzer down your
You can
pants.
stop right there. Yeah,
Chuckles the clown.
you can stop right there. You'll get it when you see.
So I've got it here. Senior LDS missionary dies in lawn mowing accident. A senior missionary of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has passed away in a lawn mowing accident in Missouri, according to church officials.
Was his wife driving?
Elder Brent Blackburn, 68, died on Saturday, August 23rd near Gallatin, Missouri. He was operating a lawnmower on the grounds of the church's Adam Ande Amen historic site. By the way, we don't know where the Garden of Eden is, but we do have an Adam Ande Amen historic site. He was riding the mower on a side hill when it overturned, according to the church. Elder Blackburn, that didn't go well. Elder Blackburn has been serving with his wife, Sister Carolyn Blackburn, at the site since April 2025, and they are from the Helper, Utah stake. Okay.
Yeah, just last week we talked about the mission president, who, by the way, is home from the hospital. But you know, it's really sad when the senior couples, the missionaries, I don't know. It makes me sad.
Are we certain it had something to do with the blades? I mean, I think that's what we're all assuming, right?
Well, I guess it could just have fallen on him and heavy enough and whatnot.
Like an ATV accident, that happens too. So, but that just came out just now. Our friend Martine, who always keeps her finger on the pulse. Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, well, and there is that. And I'll just note, Mormonism After Dark on Friday at 8 p.m. Our condolences to that missionary couple and their family, and that is horrific. So that just broke. So yeah, thanks for letting me be the one to read that, Rebecca.
Yeah, well.
Rebecca could not possibly read that because she was.
Stop.
Okay, well, I'll just say this, folks. We appreciate you being here. This is tonight's edition of the Mormon Newscast covering this week in Mormonism. Please like.
Bill, can I say this?
Oh, please.
Please like, please subscribe. Do it right now so I can tell you this last part, okay? The thing is this, the funniest episode of Mary Tyler Moore was the Chuckles the Clown episode. And it's on YouTube. And if you go watch it now, then you will and if you don't already understand what Rebecca's talking about, why it is she can't stop laughing at this horrible story about this guy dying in a lawnmower accident in Gallatin, Missouri, which is not very sensitive of you. I got to tell you, Rebecca.
I am sensitive.
Watch that. You'll not only see the best Mary Tyler Moore episode ever, and that's saying something, by the way, but you'll understand how Rebecca's such a horrible human.
It's basically that, she's a newscaster and she spends her entire episode when a clown dies, everyone's making all these horrible jokes. And she's like, be serious. This is serious. Someone
man lost his life.
When she gets to the funeral, she just starts laughing.
Everybody else is serious and she can't keep it together.
Yeah. So I kept reading that headline and I don't know what happened, but I was trying to be more professional and let Bill read it because it is a tragedy. So
Mary Tyler Moore is brilliant.
Very funny episode.
I'll be watching it as soon as we end here. Just another note to those folks watching, please, if you're watching this on a Mormonish's channel, this duplicates itself on two different channels. So if you're watching it on Mormonish, will you go to the Mormon Discussion YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, put a comment there on the episode as well. Wherever you're watching this, please leave us some live comments and let us know what you think of tonight's episode, which story was most meaningful to you, which one was most either enjoyable, entertaining, or informative. Also, just if you're on the Mormon discussion channel, go over to Mormonish and hit like and subscribe there as well. Hit the upvote. Just a note too, our work survives on donations, and so please visit Mormonish's donor box donation link. You can go to the Mormonish channel. Rebecca, where can they find that at?
It's always in any of the show notes of anything we put out. You can just click on the show notes and go down there, and there's a link to donor box, and anybody is welcome to make a donation. And we really appreciate everybody that does. You guys are amazing.
Yep.
Yes. And Rebecca, could you remind our audience, what is the clown's motto again?
Oh, make them laugh.
A little song.
That's right. A little
dance.
song, a little dance. Yep.
A little seltzer down your pants.
A little seltzer down your pants. You're just not going to let this go. It's horrible.
Well, there's that. Folks, it's been a lot of fun. We've enjoyed having you here for the Mormon Newscast. We hope that you'll join us throughout the week in the various content shows that we put out. We do it for you. We try to keep you up to date on all things Mormonism here at the Mormon Newscast. We'll see you next week. And until then, have a great night, everyone.
That's a wrap for this week's edition of the Mormon Newscast. We appreciate you tuning in and sharing this time with us. Keep the conversation going and stay informed on all things Mormonism. Until next week, wishing you peace and joy. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. on the Mormon Newscast.